Okay, thank you. Okay, it is time. So, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. We start, as always, with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave us the ability to listen and see and learn, and the tawfiq to be here today, to be able to participate in an effort to make a spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings be on his final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We will, as we always do in this series on healing the heart with the Quran, we will inshallah start with a review of what we covered last time. So last time we did Surah Al-Zalzala, and a quick summary of what we talked about, preliminary signs of the appearance of the hereafter. That's the first thing we talked about. We also talked about how the earth will become a witness for everyone's deeds. The earth will serve as a witness. And thirdly, we talked about how people will be divided up into two groups on that day, good and evil. Each group will get the fruits of their own actions. That's what we covered in Surah Al-Zalzala last time. What I want to start with today is the reason why we're going through the Quran, or the reason why we might want to take some of our valuable time that we could do a bunch of other things with. Why would we want to spend some of that time going through the Quran? That's what I want to talk about first. So I'm sure you guys know this, but I'm just going to emphasize it again, just as a reminder, because reminders benefit the believers. The Quran will serve as an intercessor for us on the day of judgment. It will intercede for us at a time when we will need someone's help um, to be in that good group that goes to paradise. So on the day of judgment, the Quran will have that role of the intercessor. It will. There's a narration of the from the Prophet ﷺ. It has some weakness in it, but inshallah the meaning of it is correct and authentic. So the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever recites the Quran and memorizes it, and we're not talking about memorizing the entire thing, but you recite, you memorize whatever you can as you're going through it, and abides by what is halal in it and what is lawful in it as lawful, and abstains from what is haram and deems it as unlawful. Such a person, Allah will admit him into paradise due to it and grant him shafa'ah, grant him intercession for 10 of his family members. That's a big deal. That's a huge bounty. So that's one major reason why we're going through the Quran. But there's another reason, and that's the name of our series, which is Tazkiyah bil Quran, or the healing of the heart and soul with the Quran. Because the Quran it acts as a friend. There's a dua of the Prophet ﷺ, which I've shared with you guys many times prior to this. And the key part of it is, oh Allah, make the Quran uh, a light for my heart. Make it a light for my eyes. Make the Quran the spring season of my heart. That's the other reason why we're going through the Quran, because we all have lives in which we will have some things that are going well for us. There will be other things that are challenging for us. So whenever we come across those challenges, we need reminders and we need a friend. And the best friend of all is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the Quran. So that's the second reason why we're going through it. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, through his own sunnah, demonstrated his connection with the Quran. Of course, the whole Quran is special, but some of us, uh, we feel a certain connection with certain surahs. Is that okay? Do you guys think it's all right for us to have a certain special place in our heart for certain surahs in comparison with others? Absolutely. It is completely okay, because the Prophet ﷺ used to have that kind of connection with certain verses and certain surahs as well. Once, for example, he was reciting these verses, and he was so moved by it that he started weeping, and he could not bring himself to finish The verses go like this: فكيف إذا جئنا من كل أمة بشهيد وجئنا بك على هؤلاء شهيدا. Listen to the meaning and then you will understand why he was crying. And it goes, the meaning is, and how will they be when we bring forth a witness upon every nation, and we bring you, O Muhammad, as a witness upon them. This is because the Prophet really felt for his ummah. And yes, that's right. So one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, he loved Surah Al-Ikhlas. And that, in fact, that's another good example of a connection. So the Prophet ﷺ, as I mentioned, had a connection with this verse where he would read. And there was another time when the Prophet ﷺ recited a verse throughout the night over and over again. And you will again see that he really cared for us, his ummah. And the verse goes like this: إن تعذبهم فإنهم عبادك وإن تغفر لهم فإنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. If you punish them, O Allah, punish who? These human beings, these people who are my ummah. If you punish them, O Allah, they are your slaves. But if you forgive them, verily you alone are the Almighty and the All-Wise. That's a verse that he kept repeating throughout the night. This is similar to what our sister said about Surah Al-Ikhlas, which is one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, he would lead people in prayer, and at the end of every rak'ah, he would recite Surah Al-Ikhlas. And the people they were not sure if that's okay, so they came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, you know what, that's what this guy does. Is that okay? So the Prophet said, okay, we'll find out why. Why does he do that? And he said his reason was that this surah is a description of Ar-Rahman, a description of the most merciful. And he said, and I love to read the description of the most merciful Allah. So the Prophet said, go back and tell that man that Allah loves him because of his love for this surah. So not only is it okay, it's actually nice that we develop a connection with some of the surahs of the Quran. So, sometimes people say they like Surah Yusuf a lot and has a beautiful story. Some people like Surah Al-Rahman, and Surah Al-Rahman, subhanAllah, it has this beautiful, very rich kind of a melody that fills up one's heart. Then there's Surah Yasin, Surah Maryam. A lot of people love all of these different surahs. In fact, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who is a scholar of the Quran among the Sahaba, he used to say that he loves the family of Hamim. So there are many surahs, as you know, in the Quran that start with the letters Hamim, all the way from Surah Ghafir, and they go all the way to Surah Ahqaf. So he said he loves that entire series. And now these are surahs that were revealed in Mecca in a sequence. And these surahs are not very technical. There are not many religious rulings or fiqh rulings in them. And they're just reminders about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter. And Abdullah bin Mas'ud said that he loves those. So even among the Sahaba, there were people who loved specific parts of the Quran. Why is it that I'm starting with this? Is because today we're going to do a surah which is also a part of a series. We're going to do Surah Al-Adiyat. And Surah Al-Adiyat is part of a series of surahs which all have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing upon in a very scenic way his creation. So in many surahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon his creation. So these are surahs in which Allah describes a scene and swears upon the things in that scene. So for example, and I've made a list for you, Surah Safat, where Allah swears upon the angels lined up in ranks, according to the Rajih tafsir. وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا, by those angels lined up in ranks and those who diligently drive the clouds. And then there's Surah Al-Dhariyat, وَالذَّارِيَاتِ ذَرْوًا فَالْحَامِلَاتِ وِقْرًا, by the winds scattering dust and the clouds loaded with rain. And then there's Surah Al-Mursalat, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, by those winds sent forth successively and those blowing violently. And then there's Surah Al-Nazi'at. We did Surah Al-Nazi'at at the beginning of Juz Amma, which is وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا, by those angels stripping out evil souls harshly and those pulling out good souls gently. So in this sequence, the last one is Surah Al-Adiyat, which is the one we're going to do today, which is وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا, by the galloping, panting horses, striking sparks of fire with their hoofs. This is Surah Al-Adiyat. And many people that I know many people who are interested in the Quran and try to learn it and try to act by it, many of them say that they really love this surah. What are the reasons for it? Let's go ahead and go through Surah Al-Adiyat, and inshallah we will all benefit from it. So Surah Al-Adiyat, it is the word Adiyat literally means the galloping mares. Mares is not a common word, so I've used the word horses, but it's actually talking about a female horse. And the reason why female horse is mentioned here is because battle horses are generally, or used to be generally when they were used in battles, used to be mares, female horses, because they tended to ride faster. So this surah is actually, it has a very clear link with the previous surah. It's a surah that was revealed in Mecca. Surah Zalzala, the surah that we did prior to this, describes the scene on the Day of Judgment. And in this surah, again, it will end with the scene of the Day of Judgment when the earth will throw out its contents and all the secrets will be revealed on that day. Now, as we go into this surah, I'm going to kind of put up a red flag. I want you to be alert, because whenever you want to carry a very strong message, that message it has a deeper impact when there's great delivery. Now, we're not listening to the Prophet ﷺ recite the surah. We are not among that generation of companions. But even to us, the words that Allah revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, those words will have delivery. And I want you to imagine the scene when we go through the surah, because this is a scene that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating for us. And the first people the surah was being recited to were the Quraysh of Mecca. So I want you to keep that in mind, because whenever you want to carry delivery with impact, you need to keep human psychology in mind, right? And human beings, we need to understand a few key things about human beings. What are we affected by when someone's giving us a message? Number one, people relate to things that we are involved in. So in this surah, you will see there's a mention of feuds, people not getting along with each other. Human society has always lived in feuds. We live in constant feuds. This has been the case throughout history. Today, it may be personal feuds, it may be countries at war, or communities that don't like each other. For the Meccans, the Quraysh, it was tribal feuds. So that was normal for them, just like it is normal for us today. We need to keep that in mind. The second thing, people love stories about scenes of battle and heroism. So any story that starts with a scene in which there's some battle taking place, we sit up and pay attention. It engages us. That's what's going to happen in this surah. Number three, to get people's attention, you need some emotion and suspense, and we're going to see that in the beginning of the surah as well. And the third thing is anything that has any scene that has fast moving objects, whether it's rockets or jets or cars or horses, they fascinate us with a scene. The difference between horses and all of those other really fast things that exist in our time, what is the difference? Horses are living beings. And if you have ever dealt with a horse, and maybe some of you have, and if you have, please go ahead and say yes in the chat window. If you've ever dealt with a horse, you've ridden a horse, spent some time with a horse, perhaps you've cleaned up a horse, perhaps you've spent a bit of time with a horse and connected with it. There's an emotional connection. And that emotional connection comes through in this surah. So let's go ahead and begin the surah. I needed to lay this foundation because this foundation is important for us to understand the surah. If we understand the first part of the surah, inshallah, the rest of it will come easy. Let's start. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. The surah starts. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. Allah swears by the galloping, panting mares, horses, like I said. فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا. Striking sparks of fire with their hoofs. You know, the horses, they have a metal horseshoe. As horses move really fast and they strike the stones, sparks fly. And this is a scene that is known to people who have seen horses ride really fast on any stone or any hard surface. فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ الصُّبْحًا. Launching raids at dawn. Now, for the people of Mecca, remember, okay, so some people who have, the stream keeps getting disconnected. Well, I'm sorry for that. If that is the case with other people, please tell me. because I need to be sure, and then I need to I need to fix the bug if there is such. If other people are having this problem, please tell me about that. And if nobody else is having that problem, then perhaps, brother, it might be at your side. But let's check it out. Okay, so we were talking about launching raids at dawn. This is a a scene that the people of Mecca knew about because in their time, it was normal for certain tribes to launch raids at dawn. I don't see anyone else saying that. Yeah, so it looks like other people don't have a problem. Some people say they maybe have a problem at the beginning, but not having any more. Okay, alas, I hope inshallah from now on, from here on forth, you will not have that problem. But it's nothing at my side. Oh, so as I was saying, the people of Mecca or the people of Arabia at that time, it was normal for them to hear about people being attacked, small villages, towns, even cities being attacked. And these were raids launched at dawn by a small group of horsemen, maybe 10 odd horsemen, and they would launch a raid, kill whoever they could, grab whatever they could, and then leave before the people of that area could organize a resistance. So this was something they knew about. In fact, they had stories of heroism. So some of them actually liked that kind of thing. Others, of course, were the victims, and they would become slaves, or they would be, their relatives would be killed. But these were stories that were well known to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing all of this. فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا, stirring up clouds of dust. Notice Allah is describing what horses do and what's happening with horses. There is no mention of the people riding the horses. All that's being mentioned is the horse or the mare itself. Why? I want you guys to think about it. And if you can think of a reason, go ahead and type it in the chat window. This is very important because this is the key message that we have to take away from this surah. Horses are being mentioned, the people riding the horses, or the real reason why they're doing it is not being mentioned. فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا, and penetrating into the hearts of the targets or the enemy lines. All of this is the story of the horse. What is so special about the horse, especially the battle horse? What is so unique about the horse? Remember, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon something, it is usually because those things are witnesses or they make us think about the key message. So the fact that very strong and loyal to their owner, yes, that's true, that's correct, because the horse is an animal that's obedient to its master, absolutely correct. Both of you are absolutely correct. In fact, that is the key message. The horse is loyal to its master. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon many things in the Quran, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon the sun, the moon, the night, the olives, the figs. Each time we read a surah in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon something, we learn the link between that thing and the key message. So in this case, horses are loyal to their master. Why is it that the horse is involved in this attack? Why is it that horse is the one riding forth? Does the horse have any animosity towards the people being attacked? Does the horse have any say in what's being done at this time? The horse is putting its own life at risk, right? At the behest of its master. Why? Why is the horse doing that? Not one lagging behind. They did their job. Yeah, that's right. They do their job. Why? Because the master feeds them. The master takes care of them. You know, these attacks in the middle of the night, they were so common that even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he was in Medina, they were afraid that they may be attacked in the middle of the night. So one night, they heard a loud sound. Yes, sister is right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them musakhar for us. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let me just complete this story about the Prophet ﷺ. So one night, the people of Medina, they were afraid that they may be attacked in the middle of the night. They were sleeping late at night. Everything is quiet. Now imagine this is the desert. There are no sounds of cars or trucks going past. It's all absolutely quiet. And then they started hearing this sound of something moving, a bunch of camels or horses or animals or something like that, relatively close to the city of Medina. And they woke up and then they started, putting their saddles on their horses, tightening them up because they started gathering their weapons because they thought they were being attacked. In some part of Medina, somebody's riding towards them and attacking them. Just like the scene that is described here as well, فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ الصُّبْحَ, and launching raids at dawn. And generally, raids were launched in the early hours of the morning because that is the time when people are the sleepiest. So these people of Medina, they started getting up, getting ready because they thought they were about to be attacked. And then they saw someone riding towards them from the dark. And this person came closer and they noticed that this person did not have a saddle on the horse and had obviously was somebody from Medina, had ridden out to investigate the matter before them without a saddle. And even the sword was not tied up properly, but was just thrown over the head and just hanging on the side. So this must have been a really brave guy who rode out before them, before they could even get ready to investigate the matter. Took such risk and came back out and came back to the people of Medina. And then he was telling them, don't worry, don't worry. It's just a caravan. And lo and behold, it was the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was more worried about the people of Medina than them. And he woke up before them, got ready before them, and rode out and took the greatest risk. He was the bravest among all of them as well. Now, coming back to what we were talking about in terms of the horses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the horses musakhir for us, and they trust their master. Why? Because the master feeds them. That is the relationship that the horse has with its owner. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts this surah with this description of the horse that is so obedient to their master. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the people of Mecca and actually talking to all of us as well. The horse is so obedient that it will put its life at risk just because you feed it a little bit. That's the relationship the horse has with you. But you, O human, who is your master? And what kind of a relationship do you have with your master? That's the key message of this surah. Because the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Surely, man is disloyal to his Lord. Or the way this translator did it, surely humankind is ungrateful to their Lord. But literally it's, sure, indeed, man is disloyal to his Lord. The horse is very loyal. It's an animal that you did not create. You bought it from somewhere. Maybe you took good care of it. Maybe you didn't. You feed it. And the animal does what it wants. And to you, that's very normal. That's how it should be. But what about you and your Lord? What about how that should be? And how is it really? إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. And this person, the human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, knows this too. They certainly attest to this. They know it. We know it. We know who our Lord really is. I've spoken to people who are atheists. I've had long debates, in the hope of making da'wah to them. And yes, some of them, alhamdulillah, they change. And other ones, they kind of stick to their guns. But in the end, when they have no response, it comes back to this. That, yeah, sure, I know, but it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. So everyone knows who their Lord is. Everyone does. But we cloud our minds trying not to think about it. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the reason for that too. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. And they are truly extreme in their love of worldly gains. Always, naturally, we lose something in the translation, but I do want to point something out here. Notice that the word for gains that's used here is khair. Khair means something good. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. And in his love for good, worldly good, this person is extreme. And because of that, he will give up on the relationship, the reality of the relationship with his master. So this word good is a sarcastic word. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it here because human beings who are like that, and may Allah not make us among them, human beings who are like that, they think that being good means Allah will give you something. And that implies that people who are rich are ones whom Allah is happy with, and people who are poor, Allah is unhappy with them. I have actually met people like that. I have met people like that, and may Allah not make us among them. Of course, I've met Christians like that, but unfortunately, I've also met Muslims like that, practicing Muslims who When it comes to money, the effect on the heart is a little different. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning us about. There are things that we will, there are situations that we will come across in our lives that will sway us. We have to be careful. Sometimes those things can become a web of shaitan. This is actually mentioned in the Quran from the point of view of Bani Israel. They think that all wealth is good, like nothing is better than it. Yes, that's correct. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being wealthy or even wanting wealth. There's nothing wrong with that. But as one of the scholars said, wealth is good in your hand, not good in your heart. Make dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may give you something, and then inshallah you will do good with it. But if you live your life running after it, then that's a life destroyed. As I was saying, in the example that Allah gives of this in the Quran, it comes from Bani Israel. Now, as you know, in the Quran, many stories of Bani Israel are mentioned. And when we read them, remember, we should not think of the Jews. We should think of ourselves. The Bani Israel were the Muslims of that time. The people who are Jewish today or follow the Jewish faith today, they don't necessarily follow all of the things that Bani Israel used to do. They don't necessarily have the same faith, but they were the Muslims of that time. So those examples in the Quran are for us. One example that is mentioned in the Quran about the Bani Israel is that they asked, from the time of Musa alayhi salam, they've been asking Allah to give them a king who would lead them into battle against the kuffar. They kept asking until in the time of apparently the Prophet Shemuel, or as in English is called Samuel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Shemuel alayhi salam told them, okay, you will have a king, and your king will be among you a man whose name is Talut, or Saul as he's called in the Bible. So Talut is going to be your king. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, and their prophet said to them, indeed Allah has made Talut the king among you. قالوا أن يكون له الملك. How can this guy be the king? وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ. Because we are more deserving of being kings. And how do they know that? بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ لَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. Because he doesn't have a lot of money. So we are more deserving to lead the ummah because he doesn't have a lot of money. They used to think like that. And my brothers and sisters, this is mentioned in the Quran so that you and I may learn a lesson and not think like that. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to them. Let me just complete that one. قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ. This is the Prophet responding now. He said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. Allah chose them from among you because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him more in knowledge and physique. وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَن يَشَاءُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for kingdom whoever he wills. وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. This is the lesson for us. And the sarcasm in this verse, وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ, and truly they're extreme in their love for worldly gains or worldly goods. We have to be careful about that, because otherwise we will end up being the disloyal sort. Why is it that we should be careful? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us back to what we learned in the previous surah. The rest of it is pretty simple. أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. If ever our mind gets clouded like that, we have to remind ourselves that there will be a day when graves will spill out their contents. There will be a day when we will be held accountable. It's, the bu'thir, the word bu'thira, it means like, you take a box, you turn it upside down, and you kind of look for things inside it. Everything is taken out. Everything is taken out. So the graves will spill everything out that's inside it. There's no way we can escape from that accountability. There was a man apparently in the past who wanted to escape accountability, and he told his children, after I die, you burn my body and you spread the ashes, and then that's how I will end up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he died and his children did that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala collected and pulled all of those little pieces that had flown through with the ashes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him together and made him whole again, and then said, my servant, why did you do that? And that person said, because I was afraid of my accountability with you, O Allah. Because I was afraid of my sins. And then notice that he was still brought together again. That's how it's going to be for all of us. We will all be brought together again. But that's not all. The next verse is وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, and the secrets of the heart will be laid bare. Again, the English does not do it justice. حُصِّلَ means they will be taken out. You have secrets in your heart, and I have secrets in my heart of the sins that we do, of what we think, what is inside. Those secrets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have them taken out. You see, in this world, we are only judged based on what is visible on the outside. In the afterlife, we will be judged based on what is outside and what is inside. Everything will come out. So what is in our hearts matters. My brothers and sisters, what is inside of our hearts matters. So the conversations that you have with yourself when no one else is listening, that conversation matters. Think of the time when you were totally innocent, when you did not know of any evil. Or think of a little child who is innocent and does not know any evil. That innocence is a choice. Whatever we have let our heart become, we can change back by changing the conversations we have with ourselves. Because remember, those conversations will become completely visible on the day of judgment. Make the choice for the kind of conversation that you have with yourself and the kind of conversation you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears everything. وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, whatever's inside the heart will come out. So choose what you choose to have inside your heart. إِنَّ رَبَّهُمْ بِهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَخَبِيرٌ. Surely their Lord is all aware of them on that day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware today as well, but on that day, everything will be laid bare. This is Surah Al-Adiyat. And I'm sure some of you will fall in love with it, just like many other people before you have, and you will recite it frequently. It's a reminder of the relationship that a servant has with his Lord. An abd, a slave, has with his Lord. The relationship is like the relationship the horse has with his master. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those that He subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with. I'm going to leave you with homework, and I just want to mention one quick thing about the homework. This is a recitation of Surah Al-Adiyat by a young Muslim girl. I think she's either from Pakistan or India or Afghanistan, one of these three countries, and there's a reason why I chose that. I listened to many recitations, but I particularly chose this one. You see the second verse, and inshallah I will share this link in the group afterwards. But the reason why I chose this is because notice the first verse, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. This second word starts with ضاد. Now, when we grew up, you must have learned from a qari who taught you that this is pronounced as zad, and then we came across our Arab brothers and sisters, and they pronounced this as dad, and we learned, okay, the correct way of pronouncing this is dad. So والعاديات ضبحا, and then some people who are perhaps not that skillful at it, they pronounce it as dal, والعاديات ضبحا, whatever it is. The point that the reason why I'm sharing this particular recitation of the surah with you is because for the past 300 years, this letter has been pronounced as dad, the way our Arab brothers pronounce it. But actually, its pronunciation is not dad, and it's not zad, the way we pronounce it in South Asia or Turkey or Iran. The actual pronunciation is in between. It's between Zad and Dad, and that's what you will hear in the recitation that I've shared with you in that link. So please pay attention to that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity to act upon whatever we learned today. And inshallah, I will see you guys next Saturday at 5 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.